Hello, hello. Yes, I'm in my robe because it's super comfortable, and we keep the heat off as long as we can to save money. So, Exodus 17. God gives the people water, or water from the rock. That's how I learned it in Sunday school as a kid, was the smacking his staff on the rock. It's a pretty simple chapter. I just went on a deep dive looking into just the wilderness of sin, because that's what they're wandering through. And I didn't get the answers I was looking for. And then I went into a deep dive of where Mount Sinai is located. And you can go on those pretty easily when you have the house to yourself sometimes. So, Exodus 17, water from the rock. I'm going to read from the New International Version. The whole Israelite community set out from the desert of Sin, not to be confused with the desert of Zin, which they'll get to later. The wilderness of Sin, or the desert of Sin, is the desert just next to Mount Sinai, or Sinai. I always said Sinai, but who knows. Traveling from place to place as the Lord commanded. They camped at Rephidim, which again I went on a deep dive because I was like, does that have to do with Rephilim? You know, like the Nephilim, the Rephaim. That's the word I'm looking for. And it did a little bit, but those words, it's just, you go on dives on words and don't get over focused on them. But there was not water for the people to drink. So they quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses replied, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you put the Lord to the test?" I'm going to read this next one, then I'll stop. But the people were thirsty for water. There, and they grumbled against Moses. They said, "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to make us and our children and livestock die of thirst?" Then Moses cried out to the Lord, "What am I to do with these people? They are almost ready to stone me." The Lord answered Moses, "Go out in front of the people, take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. I will stand there before you by the rock of Horeb, strike the rock, and water will come out of it for the people to drink." So Moses did this in the sight of the elders of Israel, and he called the place Massah, which means testing, and Meribah, which means quarreling, because the Israelites quarreled and because they tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" Alrighty, Rue. So once again, the Hebrews, the descendants of Abraham, through Jacob's line, hey, dogs, knock it off, are whining and whining and whining. Doesn't matter how much they've seen God's miracles, every new obstacle that comes their way, they begin to moan and groan about, don't they? And that's just sort of what they do. Now, I was talking to a friend, and to be honest, I understood his point. He was saying, well, like, they are thirsty. I mean, what's the big deal? God was just letting them wander there without water, and they weren't supposed to ask for it. And I was like, I understand where you're coming from. That makes a lot of sense. But understand what it's saying right here. And this is what they had not learned yet or realized yet or had forgotten in their time in Egypt. They're going to Moses. See, they're putting all the blame on Moses, but they're also going to Moses. Are they praying to the Lord? Lord, thank you for freeing us from the bondage in Egypt. Thank you for bringing us to the promised land. Please give us water for the night, as you did bread and before through manna. Oh Lord, we know that you will always provide. As Christ gave us the Lord's Prayer, give us this day our daily bread. You ask for what you need that day, and that's it. So what did they do? They go to Moses. They don't go to the Lord. They don't thank the Lord and go to the Lord. No. They go and complain to Moses to the point where they're about to stone him because you took us here and you're going to let us die of thirst. Instead of trusting that, why would the Lord take you out of Egypt just to let you die of thirst in the desert? They didn't believe that they're going to get over the next hump, even though it was a much smaller hump than the last one. Another hill, It's like when I ran cross country, I always told myself, if there was another hill, like, nah, that's just a slope. It's not even a real hill, it's a slope. They are just every little slope. It's like, ugh. Instead of just, oh Lord, we know that you always provide. Give us this day our daily bread. Like you did the manna before. That was awesome. Total miracle. Please give us some water, maybe an oasis. I wouldn't even be thinking water from a rock. Probably wouldn't have been water from a rock if they just prayed. They probably just would have come across an oasis. But no. And then they calls it quarrel because they quarrel with him. They also calls it Massa, meaning testing. Okay, why was it called testing? It's not till the very end, because it says right here. He called it that because the Israelites quarreled and because they tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" Now, they probably just got all ramped up, with Moses, because they're angry at Moses. They're putting the blame on Moses because they still don't understand God. They don't understand the glory of God. They're putting it on a person because that's what they've been under for 400 years. You see, Pharaoh was God. Pharaoh got his power. It is all about a man, somebody, something you can worship. You'll see it when the Israelites ask for a king in 1 Samuel, and Samuel goes on a rant about you don't need a king. You need the Lord. Anyway, they're like, is he among us or not? So they quarrel with Moses, but they test the Lord. He's freedom from Egypt using the plagues. He has parted the Red Sea, put a pillar of fire behind them to protect them, or in front of them with a pillar of fog or smoke behind them or in front of them. I can't remember which one. On each side, like the whole time, he's just doing amazing miracles. Just provided manna and quails every day for you. Well, I mean, you're being provided for. Well, now I'm thirsty. Now I'm thirsty. Why don't you give me some water? First he freed us from Egypt, and then he took us to the wilderness and fed us. But now he's gonna make us die of dehydration. That's his plan all along. Is he here or not? What do you mean is he here or not? What is that pillar of fire that's been behind you doing? What do you think that is? What are you, stupid? So he calls it the testing and the quarrel. They quarrel with Moses and they test the Lord. Because again, they doubted the Lord. And they wouldn't if they knew what the Lord was. They were doubting Moses. Like maybe Moses just had these powers, but he's still a man. They didn't see that it was God doing it. They were seeing it as Moses. And we'll see this later on when Moses dies. And it's Moses. I'm sure it's Moses. The devil wants Moses' body, and one of the archangels has to come and stop him. But he wants his body. Why does he want his body? Because they were still in the mind of worshiping in the physical, in the material world. So you could take the body of Moses and make it a holy place. Look at, and I'm not trying to make fun of other religions or say anything negative, but look at the Mecca, like how you have to go to in Islam to see the rock that Ishmael and Abraham may have or may not have placed there that fell from the sky. Objects, idol worship. They would have eventually been worshiping Moses' bones. And the devil knew it. And God knew it, and he took it away. Because they're doing it here. They put the Red Sea parting. They put all of it on Moses. But that also was like, so is he here or not? What's going on, man? They didn't understand that it was the Lord. It wasn't Moses. It wasn't a vindictive person who could fail or could stumble. It was the almighty, eternal, Alpha and Omega, God the Creator, who at all times is good and good at all times. So, they didn't get it. They were like, Moses, what's up with this? Is God here or not, man? What the heck? They're about to stone him. Even if they did think it was Moses, it's like, why would you stone him? But again, they didn't get it. They just didn't. And so many people today don't get it. They don't understand what the Lord is. R.C. Sproul always talked about this, that our biggest problem is that we don't know what God is and we don't know what we are. We don't get it. We always try to put human characteristics onto God. And what we should be trying to do is put God-like characteristics into our own daily lives. Righteousness, justice, love, mercy. All right, I don't want to go on a big rant for a short chapter. So, let's move on. The Amalekites defeated. Verse 8. The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, "Choose some of our men to go out to fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands." So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur, I think I know this, where they got hold Moses' arms up. Hur went to, I didn't read the second half yet, it's exciting. Hur went to the top of the hill. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. Then, when Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held his hands up, one on one side, one on the other, so that his hands remained steady still on sunset. So Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Write on a scroll as something to be remembered, and make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the name of Amalek from under the sun." Nice. Moses built an altar and called it "The Lord is my banner." He said, "Because hands were lifted up against the throne of the Lord will be at war against the Amalekites from generations to generation." All right. Well, I'm going to go back real quick here to the very beginning. He has to hold his arms up. Now, let's think about this in the material world. I know. You got to think spiritually, but let's start in the material world. Stop your whining, Tibby. Tiberius. So, they, again, what did we just learn from the rock? The water from the rock. They're still putting their faith, to a sense, in Moses. Now I'm going to skip to the end. Moses names the place banner, Lord. The Lord is my banner. He's trying to tell them, no, it's not me, it's the Lord. He's holding his arms up. He sees that they are being motivated by him. It's an inspirational thing, You see it in sports all the time. Something deep and moving. What was that center from the Knicks back in the 70s who came back out onto the court and inspired? Stuff like this happens all the time. Something powerful, something moving. Now, if you have your faith in Moses and he's holding, think about how long he had to be doing it. First off, just hold your arms over your hand. You're gonna get tired fast. This is something we had to do in boot camp. Just hold your arms out, hold your arms up, move them in circles. Do it for 15 minutes and tell me how it feels. Okay, Moses is an old man holding a staff over his head. He's getting tired. And they lose heart when they see that he's getting tired. That's something that would happen in the material world if you're putting your faith in Moses. So, we see from the rock, with the way they quarrel and test the Lord with the rock, that's already, the seeds are planted, that they're putting their faith in Moses. Moses, of course, and through the inspiration of God, sees this to his advantage. Now again, he held it up over his head and noticed that when it started to go down, he may not have even been planning to keep it over his head the whole time. He just noticed that when it went down, they started to lose. He saw that they were putting their faith in him, not in the Lord. Now, of course, he needed to defeat these Amalekites, and we could get way into depth about the Amalekites, but they were bad fellows. These were giants. I don't care what you say. They may not have all been giant tall, but they are of the Nephilim bloodline, whatever that means. Whether it's fallen angels, whether it's the sons of Seth mating with the descendants of Canaan, whatever that means, that's what they were, and they worshipped in the most abominable ways and believed it. And whether you believe it or not, it gave them powers. Whether you believe it or not, they believed it. So, terrible people, terrible philosophy in life. Amalekites are to be wiped off the earth. Moses knows this. He sees they're losing when he's going down, so he has them prop his arms up. But after it's been won, let's go over it again. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Write this on a scroll as something to be remembered, and make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the name of Amalek from under the sun." Again, they're wicked. I don't care what you want to say. You can, if you really study history. I mean, I'm already at 14 minutes, but we can get into the Amalekites. All right, they're not good people. And I'm not going to go over this whole descendants bloodline thing again because it's just time consuming every single time. You can watch Now You See TV and stuff like that. They'll do a much better job. Gary Wayne, those guys will show you the bloodlines and what they were up to. But they're to be wiped from out from under the sun. And Moses built an altar and called it, "The Lord is my banner." He said, because hands were lifted up against the throne of the Lord will be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation. They rose up against him in every single way. They hated God because God teaches selflessness, teaches morals, living by ethics. Their gods taught you to live how you want, do what you want, do what thou will, man. Aleister Crowley. That's what they're being taught. That's what they believe. That's their religion. So they're completely at odds with everything that it is in God's holy scripture, in God's holy word. So, once again, he makes sure Joshua hears this. And then he builds an altar and called the altar to God, "Lord is my banner." He's trying to tell the Israelites that their banner, their faith, their altar, their person, not person, I guess, their God, where their heart should be set on is the Lord. Because they saw him as their banner during the battle. That was their inspiration. It was him holding up his arms. Because just like with the rock, they quarreled with him. They didn't ask God for help. They quarreled with Moses. They're still putting their faith in Moses. So he names this altar right after they see him as the banner. The Lord is my banner. He's trying and trying and trying, and we'll see they don't really get it. I mean, some do, and that's why it continues, but a lot of the Israelites just don't get it. This is why they'll ask for a king from Samuel later on. They don't understand what it means to put your faith in the Lord, not in a person. I don't care. I love R.C. Sproul. I think R.C. Sproul is a fantastic minister, a fantastic speaker for God and God's glory. But I don't put my faith in R.C. Sproul. If I heard the most wicked thing and that he was all a big fraud tomorrow, my faith wouldn't be shaken one bit. That would totally blow. It'd be a big bummer for Christian society and ammo for, God haters out there. But why would that change my faith in any way? And it shouldn't. If Moses fell, you could still have faith in the Lord. But they weren't getting it. And so many people today don't get it. I mean, how many people today, they wouldn't tell you they put their faith in necessarily their minister, but how many of these big time ministers are people putting their faith in what that person says and how that person lives and what that person does? The best ministers probably aren't famous. I'm just saying. All right, so that was very simple, very easy. I know I kind of went on some rants there. But again, put your faith in the Lord. If you find out the worst thing about the person who inspired you to be a Christian tomorrow, that shouldn't shake you from being a Christian. Christianity doesn't change based on the person who told you about Christianity. God doesn't change based on the person who told you about God or teaches you about God. God is God. He's the Alpha and the Omega. He's the beginning and the end. Truth does not change. It will always be the same from time and memoriam forever. All right, everyone, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, night. God bless.